Hey, beautiful soul. I'm Carlene, the modern day medicine woman. And what I'm witnessing in the spiritual community right now is a desecration of everything sacred. Spiritual bypassing. The epidemic of people using sacred practices to avoid the holy work of being human. The way we've taken ancient wisdom and turned it into another way to abandon ourselves. I'm talking about the love and light poison that silences truth. The way trauma gets spiritualized instead of honored. The sacred feminine and the masculine being reduced to Instagram quotes while real healing gets bypassed. This is not spirituality. This is spiritual materialism, and it's destroying the very souls it claims to serve. We're going to talk about what real sacred work looks like, and it's going to make some people very uncomfortable. Let's get clear on what spiritual bypassing actually is, because it's everywhere and most people don't even recognize it. Spiritual bypassing is using spiritual practices, beliefs, or concepts to avoid dealing with psychological wounds, unresolved emotions, or the messy reality of being a human. It's the person who responds to your grief with everything happens for a reason. It's the teacher who tells you your trauma is just a story you're choosing to hold on to. It's the community that makes you feel ashamed for being angry, sad, or struggling because you should know better by now. I see it in the way people use meditation to numb out instead of face their feelings. In the way they talk about high vibrations while shaming anyone who's going through something difficult. It's the obsession with manifesting your way out of every human experience instead of learning from it. I see it in spiritual teachers who preach love and light while being absolute assholes to their communities. In the way trauma gets spiritualized and repackaged as soul lessons instead of acknowledged as trauma that needs healing. And here's what really gets me. The way people use spiritual concepts to gaslight themselves and others. You created this reality. You attracted this experience. Your vibration is just low right now, as if being human and having human struggles is some kind of spiritual failure. This isn't spirituality. It's spiritual materialism. It's ego dressed up in enlightenment clothing. It's another way to avoid the real work of being a whole integrated human being. And the damage this does is devastating. I've worked with women who've been spiritually bypassed by their communities, their teachers, their own families. And what it creates is a special kind of trauma, spiritual trauma. When you're told that your depression is just low vibration, you stop seeking the help you need. When you're shamed for your anger instead of help to understand its messages, you disconnect from a vital part of your emotional guidance system. And when everything gets reframed as a lesson or a blessing in disguise, you lose the ability to recognize when something is actually harmful and needs to be changed, not accepted. I've seen women stay in abusive relationships because their spiritual community told them it was a soul contract. I've seen people avoid therapy because they were told their trauma was just past life karma. I've watched beautiful souls abandon their intuition because some guru convinced them that questioning anything meant they weren't spiritually evolved enough. And here's the insidious part. Spiritual bypassing often gets packaged as love, as higher consciousness, as enlightened perspective. So when you resist it, when you say, this doesn't feel right, you're made to feel like you're the problem, like you're not spiritual enough, not evolved enough, not surrendered enough. It creates spiritual perfectionism, where people are terrified to be human, to have struggles, to admit that they don't have it all figured out. Because in these spaces, being human equals being unconscious. And let's talk about what I'm seeing in the spiritual community specifically, because we've got to acknowledge our shadow if we're going to heal it. I see spiritual teachers who use their position to avoid accountability, who hide behind concepts like divine timing when they're actually just being irresponsible, who gaslight their students by saying any criticism is just projection or low vibration. I see communities that claim to be all about love and acceptance, but are some of the most judgmental, hierarchical spaces I've ever witnessed, where there's this unspoken competition about who's more enlightened, who's more awakened, or who's closer to God. I see the way money gets spiritualized to the point where charging exorbitant amounts for basic human connection gets justified as honoring the exchange of energy, where people's financial struggles get blamed on their money blocks instead of acknowledged as systemic inequality. And I see the way anything that challenges the group think gets labeled as negative negativity or ego. Where asking questions means you're not trusting enough. Where having boundaries means you're not surrendered enough. The spiritual community has become just as controlling, just as shaming, just as disconnected from authentic human experience as any fundamentalist religion. We've just dressed it up in prettier language and yoga pants. We've created spiritual bypassing as a collective defense mechanism against the discomfort of real transformation, real healing, and real human messiness. So what does real spirituality look like? What does authentic spiritual practice actually involve? Real spirituality includes your humanity, not transcends it. It means feeling your feelings fully, not rising above them. It means facing your shadow, not pretending it doesn't exist. It means doing the psychological work alongside the spiritual work, not instead of it. Real spirituality doesn't make you perfect. It makes you whole. It doesn't eliminate your struggles. It gives you tools to navigate them with more presence, more compassion, and more wisdom. A truly spiritual person can hold space for anger and peace simultaneously. They can acknowledge trauma without being defined by it. They can practice gratitude while also recognizing injustice. They can be positive without being toxic about it. Real spiritual teachers will encourage you to think for yourself, not follow blindly. They'll admit their own limitations and mistakes, and they'll create a space for all emotions, not just the comfortable ones. They'll support your healing journey without bypassing the difficult parts. And real spiritual community holds space for the full spectrum of human experience. It doesn't shame you for struggling. It doesn't gaslight you for having needs. It doesn't make you choose between being spiritual and being a human. Because here's the truth. You are a spiritual being having a human experience, not despite your humanity, but through it. Your emotions are sacred, your struggles are sacred, your questions and doubt and messy imperfections are all part of your spiritual journey. So how do you navigate spiritual spaces without falling into bypassing? How do you stay authentic in communities that might pressure you to be perfect? First, you trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. If a teacher or community makes you feel ashamed for being human, that's not enlightenment. That's manipulation. And second, be willing to be imperfect in spiritual spaces. Share your struggles. Ask difficult questions. Express your full range of emotions. Be the permission others need to be human. And third, integrate your spiritual practice with psychological awareness. Work with therapists who understand both trauma and spirituality. Find teachers who honor both your divine nature and your human needs. And finally, remember that spiritual bypassing is often unconscious. Most people doing it aren't trying to be harmful. They're trying to avoid their own discomfort. But that doesn't mean you have to participate in it or tolerate it when it's directed at you. Your spiritual journey is yours. Your healing timeline is yours. Your way of processing and integrating experiences is yours. Don't let anyone convince you that there's only one right way to be spiritual. Beautiful soul. True spirituality is not about transcending your humanity. It's about embracing it fully while staying connected to something greater than yourself. And you definitely don't have to be perfect to be spiritual. You don't have to have it all figured out to be on a valid path. And you don't have to choose between being conscious and being human. The spiritual community needs more people willing to be real, to be messy, to acknowledge that awakening is not a destination, but an ongoing practice that includes all of who you are. If this resonated with you, if you've experienced spiritual bypassing in your own journey, let me know in the comments. Share this with someone who needs permission to be human while staying spiritual. And don't forget to subscribe, because we're going to keep having these uncomfortable conversations that the spiritual community needs to hear. So until next time, stay real, stay authentic, and remember, your humanity is not a spiritual failure. It's a sacred ground where real transformation happens. We'll see you soon.